Protests over George Floyd's death have spread throughout the country. Violence or resistance? Your answer may depend on who you follow online. That's next on Keep It Social. What's up, y'all? I'm Paris, and this is Keep It Social, the show that brings our timelines to life. I'm here with my co-host Terrence and today's guest to talk about the stories that caught our attention and yours on social. What's up, Terrence? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, I took a little walk today to kind of decompress and take a break from everything that's going on.
Yes, that's much needed because so much is going on social media and out in the real world. And we all know that media, be it the news or what's on our timelines, can play a big role in influencing the public's opinion about George Floyd's death and Black Lives Matter. So in the debate over where the line is drawn between peaceful protest and violence, we might lose track of what's at the heart of this unrest, the unlawful killing of George Floyd at the hands of police, of course. So to talk with us about media's role in framing the conversation is Versha Sharma. She's a senior correspondent and managing editor at NowThis News, and she joins us from New York. Hi, Versha.
Hi, Paris. Hi, Terrence. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us. So Versha, tell us, what's been social media's role in shaping this story and driving this narrative?
I think social media has been hugely influential in coverage of George Floyd's death and the subsequent protests against police brutality. As we know, it's where young people get a majority of their news nowadays, and actually a majority of American adults as well. So I work for NowThis, which is this social first outlet. We're all over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we've seen that our audience has huge interest in this. I mean, police brutality, criminal justice reform, these have been issues that young people have been passionate about for a long time now, and it's all sort of coming to this inflection point in the middle of this pandemic that we have going on, and of course with the leadership that we're currently facing, people have a lot to say right now. So I think social is incredibly important in shaping how people view what's happening, and there's a big responsibility on news organizations like NowThis and others to make sure that we're framing everything as accurately and fairly as possible.
And see, Versha, I think that's the last part you talked about, right? Like framing it accurately and fairly, right? I think that's where the issue is for me, because most of the coverage that I have seen, well, a lot of the coverage, right? Not most of it, but a lot of it I've seen online hasn't been portraying, in particular, protesters in the correct light, right? Like they are focused on violence. They aren't listening to the grievances of Black Lives Matter, of what this movement is about. They are more so worried about focusing on buildings being destroyed, things being stolen. And, you know, I completely understand that, but the message is getting lost and media isn't doing a fair job of making sure that the heart, as Paris said earlier, is at the forefront of the conversation. So what do you say when you see things like this happening, from other media outlets that aren't doing what NowThis is doing?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think the good thing about social media is sort of the democracy of it, right? The free speech that sort of anybody can at anybody or tag somebody into a conversation. And so that's where young people are able to hold more traditional outlets or legacy outlets accountable for the decisions that they're making. Because I think what you'll find is in newsrooms like NowThis that are largely run by young people in leadership positions, and very diverse as well, you get different decisions than you do at the Philadelphia Inquirer. You might have seen they ran this newspaper headline that buildings matter too.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely shocking. And of course, there was internal outrage about it in their newsroom, and people immediately spoke up and told management how unhappy they were with that decision. I think the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists just put out a statement this afternoon criticizing it and talking about how disappointed they were with that decision. These kinds of conversations wouldn't happen publicly if it weren't for social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's absolutely a downside, I think, in how mainstream and traditional news outlets have been covering the protests. But the upside of social media is that we get to make our criticisms public, and people will actually listen to them.
Mm-hmm. It's been so interesting to me to see, how what the response on social media has been to certain types of content. So obviously, when we see protesters, that is very emotive and people really latch on to that. When we see things like police officers kneeling alongside protesters, it gets a little blurry there because some people are like, this is kind of heartfelt. Some people feel like this is glorifying police and getting away, like we've already mentioned, from the message, from what's at the heart. And then when we see the images, the content with the violence, it just completely is like, what? Why are we even talking about this? For some people, whereas for others, it's, well, this is a part of what's going on. We need to talk about it. So where do we find that balance? I mean, where do we really square the circle? We have all these different things happening at once, but how do we understand where we should focus and when?
I've been working in media for 11 years now, and unfortunately, I've covered a lot of protests against police brutality from New York to St. Louis to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We've seen this over and over again. What I will say is, as a reporter, I constantly think about, okay, what do the other police officers think about this when they see their colleagues do this? And unfortunately, what we mostly hear is silence. That's especially an influence of police unions who sort of like heavily lean on cities' mayors and city council officials and tell them, you can't criticize our cops at all, right? Even if they've done something horribly egregious and it's caught on camera, we don't want to hear any criticism. That's something that comes from a lot of police unions, especially like the one in New York. But the difference that I have seen in these protests as opposed to past years is there are increasing numbers of videos of cops who are listening to protesters. And I think those are the videos that I want to see, right? Not just the kneeling, not the hugging. I want to see the conversations. I want to see them listening to protesters. And what we strive to do is elevate protesters' voices, because just as you said, that can get lost in the noise of how these mass protests are covered. But I absolutely think that that's the most important thing that we should be listening to at the end of the day.
Well, hey, maybe that'll be the next kind of thing to go viral. Wouldn't that be interesting?
It would be great. It would be great. I hope so.
Well, Versha, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. I think I'm so excited about this show, and I'm excited you guys had me on for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our social channels and let us know what you'd like to see on the show. We'll see you next time. And until then, what should they do, Terrence?
Keep it social.
A production of WGBH.